So every time that you receive a doll, chances are it probably doesn't look exactly like the photo that you see online.
It's lots of fine-tuning, little tiny attention to detail stuff. If you're not trying to drastically change this, but maybe just give it a little bit more definition, then I think we can sort of play with the natural curl pattern we've already got going here. Hopefully you feel empowered to, get curious and try something new. Hopefully it feels loose and bouncy, but still refined. At least that's what I was going for.
Hi, we are chatting Grace today. It is Grace doll time and we are so excited. So we have been photographing and getting our Grace dolls ready. You are here in the shop with us. This is behind the scenes and I want to show you Christopher's techniques for getting the dolls their most beautiful with their hair. So every time that you receive a doll, chances are it probably doesn't look exactly like the photo that you see online, mostly because those dolls have been styled. When you pull a doll out of its box, she's been traveling across the world. She's been in a box for a while and she might have a little bit of bedhead. So what you can do with some easy tips and tricks, things you can easily buy online or maybe that you even have at home, is fluff up her hair. So we're gonna go over to the back, in the back of the doll shop, on the side where we do a lot of our photography and staging of our dolls, and see how to do some of the hair on the new Grace dolls that we have. So Christopher has already styled 2 of them, and now he's gonna style the brunette. So we get a nice chance to peek over his shoulder, and I hope you enjoy learning some tips and tricks of hair care. Hi, Christopher.
Hello.
Happy New Year.
Oh my gosh, it's January. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, yes. So your job has been very exciting over the last couple of weeks. Tell us about it.
Gosh, I mean, I say it all the time, but I really do feel so spoiled and so grateful to have such a unique and specific and very stimulating, creative, fun job. It has been especially true over the last couple of weeks with the huge influx of dolls, and what that means for us is preparing them for you in every way that is applicable. So with this release, we have 3 different kinds of Grace dolls, and 1 Ellen and 1 Nema, which share a body, and they all need to be on their, best display they're ready for their close-up, they're ready for their camera time, they're going to be, on film, and they're going to be in photos, and they're going to be, we need all of the advertising images, and we need all of the hullabaloo that comes with that, so...
It's a lot. It is. We've been working for days.
Yeah. I mean,
Weeks.
Photography has been one of the most rewarding and gratifying experiences to sort of harness in this job, and it's also, I think, the single most challenging part of the job. It requires a lot of patience with myself, because I want to rush through it and be hurrying, and then the product at the end is always worse when I do. So it's a exercise in patience, but it's also a really wonderful way to exercise a sort of creativity and your own, sort of skills, your motor skills, your, creative eye, all of that fun stuff. So what that maybe means more concisely and more specifically is lots of hairstyling, lots of cleaning, lots of curling and trimming and making sure that, there's no tiny little lint hair or, a fingerprint left on the surface of a face that you can actually see in a photo, but you wouldn't, the naked eye. It's lots of fine-tuning, little tiny attention to detail stuff, which I love to do. Attention to detail is like, I don't know, almost a compulsion. I'm very detail-oriented. So it's fun in one way, but it's also exhausting in another. What I hope to show you a little bit of today with this video is ways to style your new Grace. This is her sort of fresh out of the box, and you can see that she's got wonderful, voluminous, gorgeous auburn hair that has lots of body, some really nice natural wave, but it is in due need of some finessing, just a little bit. Like, you could just simply brush a damp, wire brush through this and it would be sufficient, but I think the luster and definition you get from a little bit of extra TLC and patience is truly night and day. And if you, as a doll collector, are interested in simply just knowing some other tips and tricks about owning your dolls and how to care for them, or how to groom them, or how to style them, or maybe even how to photograph them, then maybe this, hopefully is a good resource for you today. So I think one thing that might be a fun approach today is just to start with some really basic tips. I know that as a doll collector myself, sometimes I feel reservation in handling my, precious dolls maybe too often or too vigorously or haphazardly or whatever. What I hope to maybe encourage you, the viewer, to do more of is, especially with these dolls, they are designed to be enjoyed. And I hope that when you take them home that you are filled with joy to have them. I think one of the biggest parts of doll ownership to me that I enjoy is playing with them, really. It's the styling, it's the posing, it's the photography of them. I love to create the fantasy, a tiny little scale. And I think that also includes making them feel like your own in some way through something like the way you want to brush her hair and have it sit and maybe water fall off the shoulder or something. You're allowed to play with your dolls. You're allowed to unbox them. You're allowed to brush the hair. You're allowed to dress them and redress them and change everything all over again. And I hope that you don't feel clumsy doing so. But if you do, maybe this video is for you, that we can maybe help you usher into a more comfortable doll play sort of experience. So rule number one is dry hair sometimes is going to fight you. You're allowed to get the hair wet, so please try to dampen the hair. I'm not talking about necessarily submerging the hair, but don't be afraid of moisture. In fact, particularly like a wavy curly hair responds really well to some moisture. As someone with curly hair myself, it might be human hair, but the gist is similar. Curls love moisture, and especially for the sake of photography, what will make hair look sleeker and more defined, maybe defined curls, a really smooth appearance and silhouette, is going to be keeping hairs together. So maybe something that appears like gel is kind of the look you're hopefully going for, like a tousled, touchable, soft, gelled, sculpted hair is what I hope to achieve visually. And I don't think that's easy to do with just dry hair, because you can brush dry hair till the cows come home, and it's not necessarily going to give you the definition that you're looking for. I think with synthetic doll hair, you're going to fare much better with a wire bristle brush than a plastic one or anything else. Like, I would not use like boar hair or any like brushes made for people. You're gonna do a lot better and get a much smoother, less resistance, less friction with a wire brush. You can use like American Girl makes a great brush for wire hair. And you can see that even just giving a little bit of a dry brush and sort of sculpting it as you go really does make a huge difference. Like that is a much bigger difference, but it's not gonna ever look quite that sleek, just dry. So our friends over at Dolls Part have a wonderful array of products to shop. One of them in particular being the hair like styling kit. They've got a whole kit you can buy of like all of the hair pieces at once, and I would highly encourage you to at least go look at it. They've got some great pieces. One of the things that I've been using all the time lately is the detangler, the heads-up detangler. And I've diluted it a couple different ways. In the directions, it specifies that you don't need to dilute this in water, that it actually performs very well just as it is. This will do very well just as it is. If you want a really sleek appearance, you can use it simply out of the bottle. I don't necessarily need to tame hair that severely. This is still like freshly manufactured, not really played with, very soft hair. So I'm just trying to give it a little bit more definition. I've used about, I don't know, a tiny little splash in the bottom of this and filled it about 3/4 of the way. I've been using this all day long, but I filled it to about here. You could go all the way if you want to, but as you mix them, you'll get sort of a bubbly, foamy thing, like a freshly poured can of soda will have foam on the top, so I just give it a little bit of room to fluff. And then I mix it every once in a while just to make sure that it's not separating too much. For about a half of a mug of water, I use 2 capfuls of this, give or take. It's not a science, but my point being that you don't need a whole lot of it. However, a small addition to a, otherwise large amount of water will make a substantive difference in the appearance of the hair. So, enough rambling. I'm not actually going to be doing this doll today, but I wanted to show you a side-by-side of the same Grace. This is our Grace Basic 2. I have to confess, I think she's my favorite of the bunch. She's so gorgeous. Facially, she's just breathtaking. Painted very similarly, Basics 1, 2, and 3 have a really nice, very concise, sort of piercing gaze, and wonderful full lush lips. So I want to show you another variation. Our brunette, basic number 3, is the one that we're going to be playing with a little bit more closely today. All right, so we're going to play with Basic Grace 3. She is really lovely. She's got sort of an olive tone iris and a really lovely floral, shiny lip color. Very, very, very pretty. She's got a lot of hair. She's very densely rooted. I mean, you can even just see sort of around the perimeter of the head. She's got quite a bit of plugs, and all around the scalp, she's very densely rooted. So what I want to do is sort of section out piece by piece, if you will, of sort of where we're going. I think it will help to start with some sort of vision as you go. So if that sounds daunting, bear with me. Try before you even get started to envision what you would like an end result to ideally be. What do you envision for your destination, for where you're going with hair? Try to start somewhere. Do you see something maybe more blown out? Do you see something really curly? Do you see something Rita Hayworth with like big flowing Hollywood curls? You can do a lot with just having a very minor expectation for where to go. Keep that in the forefront of your mind as you're going. I think playing with the sort of natural shape that this has will behoove you. If you're not trying to drastically change this, but maybe just give it a little bit more definition, then I think we can sort of play with the natural curl pattern we've already got going here. It's very close to a old Hollywood sort of blowout anyway, but it will wear nicer if you can give it a little bit of a full set. So I'm going to start around the back here. If you look sort of at the scalp itself, you'll see that you've got sort of a pattern of where the plugs are placed. That, I think, will help you dictate sections as well as the length of hair. So this is not necessarily consistent per section, but like generally speaking, down here will be a different length than maybe here or up on the head. And you're sort of looking at, well, what length of hair am I playing with? What pattern is it sitting in? And then how do I want to change that? So those look to be just about the same length, pretty close. I want to help get some of the sections out of my way with using some little alligator clips. I've got a bunch over here. So these are teethless, really smooth little alligator clips. You see these like for people in salons, right? I'm also going to use one of my very favorite tools. This is just a classic teasing comb with a long needle here. And it will help me sort of section out hair that's in my way versus, just hair I want to play with. I'll talk more about sort of the facing side later, but I just want to get some of these big pieces that I don't need right away sort of out of my way. And just really vaguely navigating sections around the top. Again, I'm going to sort of define that later, but I'm getting a little bun here and then sort of pinching at the root just to keep it up and out of my way. Same thing here, little loop here, and just a pinch right at the root. This whole section's actually sitting pretty nicely as it is. I might just go back and define that later, but for now, all I'm going to do is just take that whole bit, let's try to get that right out of my way. So you can already see we're starting to make new territory for what we're working with. I think generally speaking, it'll be easier to work lower sections up rather than trying to fight. If I were to style all of this hair first, I'd be fighting already set hair by the time I got to this section, and I want to avoid that. So we're starting with this whole section here and then moving up. This is sort of like, I should disclaim now that I'm not a professional hairdresser. I worked in beauty circles for a very long time and worked with hairstylists and what have you in proximity to them. But I'm not a professional, which also means that you don't have to be either. So take solace in knowing that we're all just figuring it out and doing our best. There's not necessarily a school for doll styling, for doll making, for doll, whatever. A lot of us are just sort of figuring it out as we go. So as I'm going, trying to keep sections fairly consistent. Because by the time you brush this out, like I am going to go for a little bit more of like a old Hollywood wave thing. And in doing so, you're going to get a bunch of nice little tight rolls that when brushed out, create something nice and flowy and soft. What I'm trying to do is make sure that when I set the curlers, that they're going to be in sort of a nice pattern. Yeah, let's take that there. So this row, I'm not taking all the way across. Again, not a science, but these little plugs here I might bring down for the appearance of density around the shoulders. These plugs here, again, sort of joining down with the bottommost layer, but these plugs, I'm just sort of taking this section and getting it up and out of my way. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so you've got something that looks like that. Isn't that beautiful? And we're done! Just kidding. I am sort of stabilizing her on an Elowen stand. She's just got a little bit more stability in this, or maybe like a Kaiser stand would also be totally sufficient. And I'm going to start with just my wire brush. I'm going to get it just a little bit damp with that mixture of detangler, heads up detangler, and a little bit of water, just enough to sort of mist what's going on. I find that it helps to use the back of my hand just for a little bit of, what's it called? Extra, I don't know, help, reinforcement maybe. I am brushing the back of my hand, so if that is uncomfortable, maybe consider wearing like a little latex glove, or you could even put like a thin towel down that wouldn't maybe catch the bristles. But I'm just trying to get a little bit of definition. What I'm doing is observing where the curls want to sit naturally, right? I'm not trying to fight the curl pattern. I'm not giving it a full reset. I'm just trying to sort of emphasize what's already happening. So from the front, I've got a nice little side curl here. This sort of wants to sit just up and around the shoulder. I like that. This side is hanging down around the back of the shoulder a little bit more. I like that. A lot of this is going to come down to you exercising your opinions and thinking about like, well, what do I like, what do I not like, and maybe what would I change? Keeping in mind if you have a vision and that this doesn't maybe fit with that vision, that you can fully change course, but you may not need to. With that in mind, I'm going to give this, I think, a little bit more definition with a curl. What I've got is like sort of an S shape, and I want that to be a little bit more consistent. So let's start right there. So what I'm going to do here is just get one roller started. Now, something to keep in mind that I've been made more aware of through this process learning is that you can only make doll hair follicles. You can only make doll hair strands so fine. This is pretty much to scale for human hair. Maybe just slightly, if you've got, rather fine human hair, then this is probably to scale. I mention that because in something like doll photography, it looks so much more obvious when you've got a hair out of place than maybe if it's just to the naked eye, or if you're taking a photo of a person, one teeny tiny strand out of place is not going to be obvious. It is on dolls, just because the scale for her is so much smaller than me, but the hair size itself has not really changed. So what I want to do is create something that looks really sleek and gathered and defined. So let's play with a roller here and see what happens. And these again are rollers from the same kit, the Heads Up Dolls Part kit. These are, I think, the smallest size they offer. These are just a little roller with a rubber band sort of design that allow you to fasten in the top, and then you can sort of roll hair through it. However, it may help to have some of these on hand. The rubber bands are really nice to maybe wrap around if you can and get them really tight. It's still a rubber band. It might snap back and you may not have a super secure connection here, so it's okay to sort of reinforce that however you want or need to. Another alternative that I love to use are pipe cleaners. You could use straws. If you want a really tight curl, you could use coffee stirrers. Like there really are no rules. If you take anything away from this video, hopefully it's that there really truly aren't rules, and that you can explore and play however, organically comes to you, and learn hopefully something while you do it. Using one of these curlers, I'm going to get the hair just a little bit damp. You're not trying to get like soaking wet hair. It doesn't need to be saturated, but something that's moist, damp maybe. And I'm using just a slow, gentle pump out without misting everywhere. If you can get something that does that for you, great. If not, no worries. And I'm sort of just focusing on the ends and pulling it up as I go. Because I have the detangler in here, it's a conditioner of sorts that will leave a really nice shine on the hair. It will also leave a shine on doll body. So if you are photographing this later, you'll have to just buff that off of the face or the torso or whatever it is. You might save yourself some time and effort by avoiding too much of that to start with. So taking the sort of nice damp end here, I'm going to slide my curler down to the root of the hair. One thing that I think makes a really big difference when you're doing this for all doll stylists is the end of the curl is going to be what gives you the appearance of definition the most. If you are just sort of wedging this down here and rolling haphazardly, by the time this sets and comes out, you're going to get like a crimped, not especially smooth, not especially pretty appearance in the very tip of the hair, the very ends rather. So what I want to do is sort of roll this up, and as I go, I continue to tuck that curl back in, being mindful of what direction the curl is sitting on the roller. If you are pulling the roller away from her face the way that I am, and the ends of the hair are sort of tucked forward, the curl will not really sit properly. What you want to do is try to keep the direction of the curl and the overall roller the same. Now, you can take this all the way up to the scalp if you want to. That's going to give you a really tight curl. I don't necessarily need that, especially because this is the bottommost layer. What I'm trying to do is get a little bit more continuity just on the ends. So I'm going to stop maybe just at the jaw, just at the nape here. I'm going to pop on the end of that roller that sort of loosely sits there, and then you can tuck this in at the little notch. If you're using pipe cleaners or straws, right about now is when you can use pins or alligator clips or what have you to secure that a little bit. Now, if you see, I've already got a little piece sort of straying away there. I want to make sure that I'm tucking in any sort of loose curls, and just to be sure that that's not going anywhere, I'm going to use my little alligator clip and just sort of pin that rubber band down. So you get something that sort of looks like that. Now, the hair is not saturated, but it is damp, so this will do better to sit overnight, or let's say that you're doing this really early in the day, you can wait till the evening for it to be dry. So if your rollers are fighting you, like my last one just did, you can pop a foil or a little tissue there. Again, the set comes with tissues for various uses. You can pop those on with a little alligator clip. So I'm going to section the back out here into maybe, I think, let's say 3 pieces, because I don't need it to be super crazy. Again, the more rollers you're using, or the more specific appearance you're trying to get, maybe the more rollers will be necessary. If you're using lots and lots of rollers, you'll get something that's maybe, you're going to have more curls to try to join together. What I'm trying to do is just get a really sort of sleek, classic appearance that utilizes the pre-existing curl pattern to my advantage. I want to get something that's this, but a little bit more uniform, right? So I'll start with this whole major section of plugs here. I'm going to get the tips of this just a little bit damp. This does require a little bit of practice with ambidextrous, both hands usage, an exercise in dexterity. Yeah, I don't need that to be too crazy. All I'm trying to do is get a little bit of definition here. This stand is fighting me now. One thing you can also do to sort of anchor your project is just to use a weight, any kind of weight. I'm going to use a tape dispenser here and just place that on the stand so that she's not as prone to rocking around. You're trying to use both hands, and if your doll's fighting you, it's going to make it that much harder. So trying to get all of my little strands in unison together. You could use just water. I think the detangler here makes a really big difference, both for like reflective texture stuff, but also it's easier to use. Water will evaporate and sort of just go away. This will give you an actual, almost like a setting lotion effect. So before I get the roller in, what I want to do is make sure that my dry hair is out of the way and that all of the hairs are sitting parallel. Like, I'm trying to avoid any sort of wiry hairs out of place, because once you set them, they will lay the way that you've curled them, if that makes any sense. So I'm going to take my... Actually, I might even switch sizes of rollers here. Do I need a bigger one? Maybe not. I'm going to sort of tuck that hair up and under, and if that band is fighting you, you could take it out all the way, but I find that leaving one end of that rubber band in is actually easier than not. I'm going to try using the needle of my teasing comb, and as I roll, just tucking in any loose hairs up this way. This process can be kind of tedious. It can be sort of a long exercise in patience. Don't be afraid of even walking away and coming back. I think that really can be helpful to sort of see from a larger, farther away perspective, like, oh, maybe I can change this, as I revisit the project. I don't need this to be a super tight curl, so I'm going to stop maybe mid-shoulder blade on Grace here, getting the other end of the curler plug and kind of reaching this across and holding that there. That one is also being a little bit finicky. So I'm going to grab one of my roller tissues, and I'm folding that in half, holding the band as I sort of reach around. This is damp, right? So a tissue will saturate. Careful that you're not, pulling and getting like wet tissue ripping out or something. And that will just help to make sure that it's maybe not shifting too much. Same thing over here. I like this curl, but I want it to be all of these little, if you look really closely, you're going to see all these other little loose stray hairs that you could train into place, but what you're going to do is fight them the entire time. All of these ones that are trying to move out of a different, curl pattern, different direction, are going to fight you. So I want to avoid that if I can. I'm just going to give it a loose little reset here. And I'm curling all of the hair away from the face, meaning that the roller is coming out this way rather than in toward the face, curling maybe the other direction. That's a stylistic choice. You can do whatever you want to. There are no rules. I think for an old Hollywood appearance and something really timeless and classy and very feminine, I'm gonna roll it away from the face. And all of these little stray curls coming apart, that's what you want to avoid. So I'm gonna get a little bit more moisture here and try to keep those as collected as possible. As I'm tucking the hair down and under, I'm keeping some tension by pulling the roller down on the sort of lock of hair, and then rolling and tucking until I get to about here. And I'm going to get my end piece, see if this one wants to stay, tucking that in there. And that little curl we can sort of tighten with, with an alligator clip and some paper. I'm losing things all the time. Did I use all those alligator clips? I did. Okay, we're gonna sacrifice, well, for now I guess I can use one of these giant ones. Isn't that silly? Yeah, my life is just constantly losing things. Maybe I'll do one more roll on this. Yeah, that is a lost cause. I'll do one more sort of revolution on that roll. So that's I don't know. I guess that's considered step, 2 or 3. That's what one sort of section looks like as you get those curls started. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to the sort of like mid-crown section. So all these pieces we're gonna sort of revisit now. You can also do sections at a time, meaning more specifically that you could let just this set until it's fully done, and then you can move on to the next one to begin that pattern. This is completely up to you. I'm gonna work as that previous section is wet just for my own time's sake, but if you are on no rush, I think it's actually perfectly fine to wait for one section to dry first, so that way you're not, fighting it or risking bumping a set and having it come undone. Once you get it rolled, you're not gonna wanna mess with it again until it's dry. So whatever you want to do or need to do to avoid working twice or making your own job more difficult, then I trust you to do. I'm gonna get this little piece out of the way because that's a different section here. Yeah, let's divide that here. So again, it's just lots of your own intuition. Trust yourself to, navigate what hair looks like it's maybe a different clump, a different piece than what you're working with. This is all it is, you guys. It's the trial and error of being like, well, what do I think would look good? You're your own expert. Navigate through the world with that hubris. You're your own expert. What I want to do is make sure that the pieces that are framing the face are, they cohabitate with each other. So I've cut off this section just before the end of her, like, sideburn sort of area. Realistically, I maybe shouldn't have done that, but it's at the very, very bottom. You may not even see it. I would say ideally, like I did with this one, especially true if you're doing like a really tight curler set, that you would maybe want to have these pieces be congruent sections. This might feel, I don't know, we'll see how it turns out. But be mindful of maybe where your sections end as they frame the face as well. That's the takeaway. I want to use, that's probably going to be its own section, and that's probably going to be its own section. So I'm going to use this here. That's the beauty of a teasing comb, is you can really use that needle to divide sections really, really easily. And actually, I think I'll take most of this. I might leave the uppermost part of that. Being mindful of complete plugs, trying to not take just pieces of one or another. And actually, I can probably begin consolidating clips now. And then for this side, I want to get a little bit out of here too. Just so at the very least we match the other side of the face. Alright, so now you can see we're sort of working at the midsection here. This doesn't need to be like reinventing the wheel as far as curl pattern goes. We're sort of mimicking the same section as before. What you might see now is a difference in length of hair, right? So when this doll was cut and styled initially, this piece and this piece, although they're next to each other, are cut to be in different sections. So you can sort of use that at your, listen to that as well as you go along to think about where those pieces might fall. This curl lock is actually fairly defined, but what I will encounter later is a sort of fuzzy appearance at the end of the hair where that all collects. I might want to get something that's a little bit more defined there. So as we're going through, I just want to emphasize that this is the extra mile. The $200 doll that you just invested in does not need a full roller set. She's completely sufficient, fresh out of the box, with a nice damp brush and a little, quick comb through. If you want to perhaps embark on learning something new about hair play, or trying something different, or maybe this is your 7th Grace and you want to get frisky and, feel unafraid and courageous to really enjoy her, this is a rooted doll. She's the perfect kind to explore different hairstyles with. So you don't have to, but I like to break rules and be messy and do what I want. And so with these rooted dolls, I'm sort of leaning into what direction I foresee them going in. Now, as we go along, I'm not fighting the natural curl direction or pattern a whole lot. I'm trying to make it more concise. And as the detangler will sort of give you a sleek appearance, if you leave like one piece out that is really nice as it is, one particular nice defined curl, will still have a different texture because it's not being set in that product. I might still give it just a really light brush through and a small little curl, simply for continuity's sake. Not that it particularly needs it, but it will look out of place when everything else has been fully set. So, this is where I'm going to leave it for this evening. We're getting ready to clock out and go home soon. So I just wanted to show you, this is sort of like crown down sections. I've got loose curls that are sort of sitting mid-length on the strand, and I'm going to let those sit overnight. If I were to pick this up tomorrow, they'd be totally ready to go, but this will be extra, extra ready on Monday. I'm just down to my last couple curlers, and I'm not going to have quite enough for the entire top of the head here. So I'm going to let them dry, and then I'll recycle these curlers to use the next time we revisit this. And then maybe we can also show you other techniques for using, or techniques for curling using other things, right? Curlers are one of many viable options. If you wanted to use pipe cleaners, if you wanted to use straws, for like really tight little poodle bangs, you could do coffee stirrers, that kind of thing. And we can show you a whole other menagerie of tools you might need to do so, and benefits, pros and cons to either technique, and ways to sort of maneuver through that. So let's let us know if that would interest you. In the meantime, I'm going to let Grace dry up here so that she's ready for her close-up for photography on Tuesday, and we'll show you sort of what the finished product looks like, but hopefully it's something not altogether unlike our lovely little auburn redhead here, or the, let me go get the lemon, she's so pretty, I love the lemon blonde. Some expectations maybe, hopefully for you to establish for pros and cons, and maybe destinations for where you can take styling. These are the same pattern, same haircut pattern, and same curl pattern, and same density, just styled a little bit differently. So we'll see sort of how this one organically comes out. And thank you for tuning in for part 1, and we're gonna have a part 2 coming at you very soon. In the meantime, enjoy your holiday season, because it's still the holidays, right? Happy New Year, and happy hairstyling. And welcome back. Ring transition costume change. This is the same day this was filmed last time.
Yeah.
So we have returned to this sort of lower half of the headset, and I've only taken the rollers out. I haven't even touched these, so you can kind of see what we're working with for general shape. They should feel really sleek and sort of defined and intact and whatever. We'll go back through and brush these out with a wire bristle brush later, but before I do, I want to kind of finish the top and the crown of the head here. So we're gonna get some sections out. I'm gonna pull both of these just because I don't love where that section is sitting by itself. I want that to feel like a nicer piece when it lays flat. So we're gonna sort of combine these and then re-divide them, if that makes any sense. And actually, I'm just gonna start all over here. So what I want to do is sort of work with the part, right? Like, don't fight the rooting pattern as it is. You sort of want to work with it, not against it. At the very, do what you want, but I would advise fighting that as little as possible. So I'm gonna take my teasing comb needle and sort of get a more precise, what's it called, sort of section here. Also trying to be mindful of not pissing off the curls that I just made. That feels like a good section, actually. Maybe just those two. I might make this 2 sections, so you got 3, sort of depending. And like I'd mentioned before, so much of this is just like, follow your heart. What is your intuition telling you? You know, there's not really a science to this. But hopefully you feel empowered to, get curious and try something new. So trying to keep that thatched part as, clean as I possibly can. I think this feels like a good start, so I'm gonna get the other piece out of my way. These alligator clips are gonna be your best friend. I don't care what you're doing. Get a whole stash of them. Yeah, I'll come back to this one in a second. I'm not super concerned about sectioning out pieces before I clip them right now. I'm kind of just working one little section at a time. So getting back to my mixture of the heads up detangler and some water. I'm just gonna get the tips wet. Same drill as before, kind of pulling that up as I go. And then I'll come back in with a comb and a brush and what have you to sort of get all of those strands to lay nice and parallel, for a lack of better words. And then we'll get that in a roller. But you can see now that I've got all the other curls sort of pulling away from the face, where this one wants to sort of S-shape in toward the face. And I'm thinking of something a little bit more blown out and pulled back. All right, so kind of pulling all of that mixture through the hair. So yeah, now you can sort of decide whether or not, the brush will always be helpful, but just because it's so big, if you're working one little, lock at a time, this might be, a comb might behoove you, might be easier to use. I'm just trying to make sure that all of these, like from the rooting point, are as smooth and straight as possible. I think there's nothing worse than a roller set with like squiggly little, out of place, misbehaving little strands of hair. Okay, so now I've got this pretty damp. It's not saturated, but it's sort of sticking to itself pretty nicely. I'm making sure I don't have any wiry out of place ones. And then I'm gonna get my roller and sort of repeat the same step that you'd seen previously. So we're gonna sort of start, maybe not quite an inch away, 3/4 of an inch from the very ends of the hair, and then sort of pushing that up and over the roller, keeping this band out of my way if I can. And then, because I want to pull and keep some tension on the hair as I go. I don't want it to feel like, I don't want to feel slack, I don't want it to feel loose. So what you're trying to do is roll and pinch sort of at the same time, keeping tension down and keeping the ends smooth under the hair as it rolls up. All of these little, like, sort of loose, squiggly pieces are what I'm trying to avoid, so I may just sort of reset that and pull all the way through. I promise that's worth it. But you can already see sort of how that's training the hair a different direction, and the detangler will make a really big difference. I'm going to pull this down again here about 3/4 of the way just so I can get that nice and smooth. And then rolling that up and under. And each time I make another revolution, I'm trying, if I can, to keep the ends of the hair up and under so it's not, pushing out the sides. Now, this is about where, maybe one little half turn more. I don't need to go all the way up because, again, I'm not trying to get like a Shirley Temple perm. I just want something that's going to be sort of loose and flowy and almost like a finger wave appearance. So that band is going to sit there nicely. I'm going to take one of my papers and then just pinch, and to reinforce the whole thing, using my alligator clip to keep it in place.
So here we are. Grace is...
This is my makeshift salon.
She's setting.
She is setting, and I want to be clear that the heater is not on a very high temperature. So
it's on medium.
Yeah, if you're concerned about, melting, that is a fair concern, but we've got her far enough away and on a low enough heat setting that it will assist in drying and setting the curls without risking any damage.
And they would have to, it would have to be so hot, actually, to melt the plastic on these dolls.
You'd have to be, like, up against the heater. But hair can still sort of meld even if it's not, like, liquefied or whatever. So if you have a space heater at home and you're, like, using techniques that we're showing you today, you are welcome to try this. I would just encourage you to be mindful of that and very, exercise your intuition about, something like that. But it's been a couple of hours now, so I want to see how the heat and everything has set just as it is this way. Of course, you don't need to use that step. This was just a way for me to sort of expedite the finished product, but if you wanted to just let that set overnight, you'd be totally sufficient. So we've got the last sort of upper half of the crown here, and let's get into this side and sort of see what this looks like. So starting on the lower-ish layers, I'll say the under layers, so that you're not fighting the top ones when you go to take those out, and sort of going with the curl pattern as I undo these, trying to not stress those too much. Yeah, those are still a little bit warm to the touch, so that should be totally... Those look beautiful, don't they?
They do.
Like, nice and intact. We're not going to keep them quite that defined, but you want a smooth, sleek curl to brush out. If it's, if it's frizzy in any way, it's not going to do you a whole lot of good. So when I was doing all of these layers, sort of working with the pattern of plugs around the face, the scalp, if you will, and pulling those out and back, I think those turned out pretty nice. Separating those sort of... as I see fit. You are your own expert, Yeah, let's work this way. You probably actually can reuse those papers once or twice, additionally, after that first use. The beauty of this is that you are brushing through these anyway, so as close as you want them to be to, like, I don't know, perfection, you can sort of brush through and style as you'd like. And also, this is not like a permanent, like, you really could, do a full reset every week if you wanted to and try different silhouettes and shapes and styles and what have you. Yeah, those feel nice and dry. But do you see how, like, shiny the hair looks? Like, it just looks really very salon ready, I think. So I suppose if you wanted to keep it just like that, you could, but I want to do something a little bit more stylized. So that's sort of our 75% of the way through product. But yeah, really nice defined curls, really sleek. So if, let's say maybe you had much longer hair or a wig with longer hair or what have you, you probably could get away with really nice, spiraled ringlets. And not brushing them through and sort of leaving them as they are, but doing so will give us a really nice sort of vintage old Hollywood appearance. So I'm going to get my station ready, and I'm going to get the wire brush here. And I just want to mist it a little bit with my mixture. And I'm going to use the back of my hand to sort of brace a little bit here. And I just want to gently comb through the very tips of those till they sort of begin to fluff together just a little bit. I'm following the direction of the curl, pulling kind of down and out as I go. And the reason I'm misting this is so that you get, as little friction as possible when you're pulling through. You're not necessarily trying to get the pad super saturated, but I would like a fairly coated bristle as I comb through. I just don't want to be tugging too much on curls unnecessarily. And that will just give you a really nice little bit of extra. Switch hands here. And at this point, you can sort of begin listening to where the curls want to sit. Curls very much have a mind of their own. And if you want something that's, really specific, you can, of course, set the hair that way. I wanted something sort of organic and flowy and really sort of, wavy in some way. And so as you're combing through, you can sort of listen to where those curls intuitively sort of want to sit as they bunch together. And this part is sort of time-consuming just because it's sort of finicky. It's not, again, it's super, super not a science, especially at this point. You're sort of just gonna kind of comb through until you get, the right feeling. The beauty of this, though, is that because you're combing through that sort of hard set, you're not gonna get something that falls, hopefully at least. You shouldn't be brushing out curls, you should just be sort of redirecting them. So I like the sort of wave pattern that we're getting on this side. Something else when you're brushing through curls is that once you get to the ends of the hair, you'll get sort of a spring back effect as you're brushing or combing. And if you want to avoid that so that they begin to sort of coil together, you can hold the hair about mid-length with a finger or with a clip or whatever, rather than brushing all the way through and getting that sort of spring back and sort of getting a fraying effect. You can take, oh, that's beautiful. See, that's what I mean, just sort of following the direction of the curls. They'll sort of tell you where they want to go. That sort of, swoopy silhouette. This is going to be lots of sort of trial and error and playing with it. In doing so, you'll get a really, really nice, shiny, sleek, defined effect that maybe fresh out of the box you won't get quite as much of. So I'm going to fiddle with this a little bit and I'll update you in a second.
What's going on? So how's it going over here?
Well, I'm having a grand old time sort of getting nice little loose waves. I still want something that feels defined, but just sort of picking as I go, right? So I've sort of found a curl pattern that I like, and then going back through and resectioning again to get a really nice, smooth, coherent sort of effect. Rather than wetting the hair again, I don't want maybe too much product or too much moisture. I'm going back with my teasing comb and just sort of getting just a little bit on the ends here, tapping off what I don't need, and sort of training this section to sort of sit where I want it to, and hopefully doing so without disturbing the pieces that I've just sort of rearranged underneath them. So I want this, I think, to sit sort of flush against the head, maybe, because this could curl one of two ways. This could sort of sit out and give you a bang pulled away from the face, or you could have it sit more flush and swoop up and out, something a little bit more like that. But this is just sort of trial and error experiment time to see sort of what shape and silhouette and effect you can go for. And again, there isn't a science, but you can sort of trust your own judgment when it comes to what you think is flattering and what you think is pretty and what you think is, revolutionary and groundbreaking and something different. This is your full excuse to try something new and to play a little bit. You've come this far, you might as well sort of exhaust every potential appearance and sort of play with the curls any direction they'll lay. Something a little bit like that, right? And then when we go to our photography station and go to get nice, good glamour shots, we'll have to clean up all these little tiny hairs, and that's what takes so much time. But it's having fun. You get to play beauty salon with your Grace dolls, and any other ones for that matter. But yeah, I'm still sort of some fiddling, but I think that sort of gives you the idea.
Yeah, let's look at the back here. I think it looks beautiful, Christopher.
Well, thank you. I just sort of gave a classic flip in the back, gathered up all the different layers of curls, and when you start the curls, about the nape of the neck, and then they keep, cascading down, the highest most curl will sort of Velcro up all of the other ones, so you can get a really nice like sausage roll on the nape of the neck there. And of course the hair is, the layers are longer than that, but sort of playing with shape and texture and, all of that. Hopefully it feels loose and bouncy, but still refined. At least that's what I was going for. And this is your sign to play with any sort of creativity with hair play that you've been putting off or apprehensive about. Indulge, have fun, try something new.
I love it, Christopher. Thank you so much. And we're going to put a link to the hair care kit. We buy this. This is Barbara.
This is amazing.
Barbara did send us the initial kit as a gift, which thank you, Barbara. And we have since restocked, and we have been using the Boost and the Twin Pines and the Perk for years and years and years, and buying all kinds of things from Dolls Parts, Barbara at Dolls Parts. So anyway, we will link the hair care kit in this video. Please buy one if you want to. Definitely worth it, and support Barbara over there at Dolls Parts.
I think so. I mean, even if you're only looking for one or two of the pieces from the kit, but you're trying it for the first time, consider just diving all the way in, because there's yet to be a single component of that I've not found useful. Even if I wasn't expecting to use one or more of those pieces, I've been like, I could really use a blank, and then go rummage through that kit, and there's a perfect solution in there. So yeah, I would say it's a worthwhile endeavor, wonderful expense, and an investment for your doll collection, because you've gone this far. You have all these beautiful new Grace or Elowen dolls. You might as well get the tools you need to treat them properly.
Absolutely. And we're going to be taking some beautiful photos. And in the same breath, I also want to thank Dee in Brazil for editing the photos and making them look so beautiful as well. That's another art form that we have here at the Virtual Doll Convention. And oh my God, she looks so good.
Yeah, I mean...
Good job.
Thank you very much.
What do you think?
I think I've perhaps done something to supplement her already wonderful beauty.
Yeah. Out of box, though, you guys, do a little of the detangler spray. I mean, this out of box, I would love to have hair like this.
Right? Like, that volume is beyond.
That's out of box.
That's out of box. And I gave a little bit of brushing here, but, like, this is just the way she comes. Yeah. I think what you get, one of the strongest things that this technique will give you is just a shine, a really nice sort of lacquered effect. You're getting a really nice reflection fresh out of box, but if you want that sleekness, I can't recommend the detangler enough. And again,
wet comb.
Just it's a wet comb diluted with that solution. You can also, I'll just take a tiny little bit of this sometimes in a dish. If you want like a really sort of gelled down appearance, you can just sort of tap into your dish and slick down one or two hairs, and it's beyond.
Yeah, good. Well, that was very helpful, Christopher. I hope everyone's having a great time learning about dolls and playing dolls this month.
Happy toast to
Happy toast to 2024.
And we'll be seeing you for the next clip very soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.